kind of start streaming? Is that?
I haven't seen our thing
Says
pop
we're
up
connected.
live. So.
Okay, excellent connection. Says I'm live.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. You should see it. Yeah, I got an in-stream button. Apparently, I'm live now. Okay. Apparently, I have to start these things with the button in OBS now, not the button in YouTube.
We are live.
Okay, we're live?
We're live.
Okay, does this button work? Hey, okay, that button looked like it worked. Awesome. All right.
This is going to be an awesome start for those of you listening and watching.
All right, does this button work? All right, that was a lot of clipping. Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF with 2 P's, as always, joined by Thury BFF with 2 F's. Yeah, so for those that need some explanation for the intro, a couple weeks ago, I spilled stuff on my laptop. If you listened to our last episode, you know this already. Laptop I normally use to run the podcast, fried the keyboard, could replace it. Quite frankly, I don't like the laptop that much, so I'm not looking to actually replace the keyboard. I'll get a new one eventually, so switch to running these streams on my desktop. Now, the bad part about that is I have nothing set up to actually run a podcast on my desktop, so I've been screwing with that for about the last 20 minutes to get us into a position where we can hopefully YouTube. So, if you're out there in YouTube land and this is working, great. Hi, how are you? And, yeah, actually bringing a show. We were not here last week because storms wiped out power to 136,000 customers across Illinois and Missouri. I just so happened to be one of them. So Dan was traveling immediately after that, so there was no way we can make a podcast work last week, thanks to Mother Nature. But we are back this week, and Dan, I gotta ask, how are you after a week off? Away.
I'm good. We just got back from Minnesota, visiting family. May or may not have contracted COVID, so we'll see.
COVID got a contract before Devonta Freeman did.
Yes. I'm still on vacation. I'm just enjoying the last of my hoorah before I go back to work on Friday. I'm excited to run through. It is hype week. It is since I think last week. Every 5 fucking minutes, I feel like there's a hype video.
I don't even know what week of the training camp season it is anymore. Apparently, it's hype time.
It's insane. There's like pictures of athletes just calves, and we're freaking out. Players are doing things that players do when people are freaking out. Josh Allen threw a football to Cole Beasley or John Brown or somebody, and everyone's like, Josh Allen can throw a football again. It's like, guys.
Josh Allen always could throw a football.
We're bored, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. I have no idea. Does it seem like, in general, the buzz around fantasy football is less this year?
I feel like...
Or am I just...
With the unknown, it is true. It's something that I've actually talked with people about. It's generally just because I think the casual crowd who will play with their work people don't think there's a season, so people may not feel as
right.
invested.
I've only got one home league that has set up a draft so far, and that's down from normally 4 or 5 redraft home leagues. So I don't know if people just don't like me anymore, or if there's just less buzz going on. So probably a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
If I had to take a wild guess, but it happens. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what we're drinking, and it will be another soft try to fit a beer review in wherever you can episode, because we're going to try that for a few weeks and see how it works. But we still have to preview it the same way.
What's fueling Beerfield?
And this edition of What's Fueling Beerfield is brought to you by the Fantasy Headliners Draft Guide. Most things I forgot to do this in the intro. FantasyHeadliners.com. Get their 2020 Draft Guide, $19.99, promo code beer. If you do have some buzz around fantasy football and you're getting into redraft, it has everything you need to know. Jake, Kyle, the other guy whose name I can't remember right now that we had on, Chris. So you can see why that's a hard one for me.
Miguel, there's a lot of people that have helped with this.
Chris Hopper
guide.
at Hot BFF with 2 P's, by the way, have helped out with this draft guide. So a lot of people we've had on, a lot of people that we trust, whose opinions we trust, who did the work that, we didn't want to duplicate, quite honestly, because it's work. So fantasyheadliners.com, promo code beer to get their draft guide. Player profiles on damn near anybody you can think of. Head coaching change, offensive line changes. You need a breakdown. They got it. They've done the legwork for you. So lean on them and their work, much like we're doing. All right. For this episode of Beerfield Fantasy Football, I am drinking Firestone Walker. I am way out of sorts. Firestone, Luponic Distortions IPA series. This one is Peach, Pear Drop, Dragon Fruit. They don't really break down the name of these in any way, shape, or form. It's just a series of IPAs that they don't even really break down what hops are in them. They just kind of write down what flavors you get. So this is the one that's kind of, for those on YouTube, in a creamish colored can with pink foil on it. Dan, with Zoom now, I think you can see me. So
I can see you.
Ooh.
I can see the can. Ooh.
Yep. So 4 of you coming up on this. And they might even try to guess what hops are in it, even though that will never be confirmed. Dan, what do you got?
I'm drinking Indeed Brewing out of Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota to be exact. Hop Dab IPA. Indeed is one of my favorite breweries from the Minneapolis area. So I was able to, my stepdad was able to pick up some before we made our way up there. So it's a West Coast inspired IPA. Just given the hop profile to it already, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
All right. Well, we got a show, so let's go ahead and get into the show.
We got a show.
We have a show. So we're going to go over some hype. We're going to go over some news over the last couple weeks, just a handful of it, because quite honestly, not a whole lot here. And then we'll go over some late round picks. Some flyers you can take. We'll go through guys that are round 10 or later and try to make a team out of them. So that's how we're doing sleepers this year. All right, starting off, Darius Geis has been cut from the Washington Showerheads football team. So those that don't know, it's been a couple weeks, but apparently there was a domestic violence incident. Washington, after all the bad press they'd gotten, decided that they are not screwing around and just outright cut guys. So, I don't think they had another choice here, trying to push the culture change, and the timing of it was pretty terrible. And ultimately, if you do something like that, you should be cut. There should be consequences. You should, at the bare minimum, have to wonder if your career is going to continue, especially, you're a high round draft pick, but you've done squad else because of injuries and things.
Yeah. So for those of you that are, either forgot, lived underneath the rock, or was lost into the amount of fucking hype that is flowing through Twitter and through the football in general. 3 counts of domestic violence for guys. I believe one of them included strangulation, which is a felony, and I believe it happened in, I want to say, Louisiana. I can't remember where it was. I feel terrible. Anyways, so obviously that's why he is where he is. They cut the Ron Rivera cut him about an hour into the news breaking out. I agree. This was probably the only move that they had to make. What was kind of funny and sad is that the next day they activated Reuben Foster, who also has a past with domestic violence that I think was only like a year ago. They still have Adrian Peterson, who also has his spout with domestic violence, including kids. So while it's a good step in the right direction, I just find it interesting that they're this keen on changing the culture while you have 2 other players that have a just as big of a history with it as guys.
Because of the optics of it. I mean, that's basically it. We talk about recency bias all the time, and recency in this league is and in this industry and in anything is we're gonna be mad about what's going on right now, and then we're gonna move on to the next thing. And people will bring up Adrian Peterson here and there, and we'll bring up Reuben Foster here and there. But what is it right now? It's Darius Geis. It's the timing right after it happened. He'll, just like Kareem Hunt, he'll end up someplace with a second chance at some point. But at bare minimum, this is kind of like, you got your legal problems and now you have to think about whether you threw away your career as well. And then, I hope somebody does give him a second chance at some point. But, like most people in this situation, there's got to be something that shows remorse, that shows he learned something out of this, that shows that it is not going to happen again, and that he understands the severity of what went down.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he gets any jail time. We obviously have to, we'll have to see how this all plays out. I think just like with Kareem Hunt, he'll likely won't play this year. I know that, with AP and then with Ray Rice, which is kind of the ground zero of when everything broke out. I do agree with you that Geis will eventually get a second chance if he avoids jail time. I don't think he'll get the treatment that Vic got post jail time. But as for redraft, obviously don't draft Geis. It's just like I just don't think he'll play this year. As for dynasty, just it's one of those situations where I won't fault someone who wants to move on from him. Obviously, as more news breaks out, we'll get an idea of what his football career looks like. But right now, if you own him, don't drop him until he probably ends it. Like if he goes to jail, you can more than likely drop him and be fine. But
sure,
you'll have to want to just hold on to him. Unless you play in shallow leagues, maybe try to flip them. Somebody will be out there trying to buy him for cheap. I've already seen it on Twitter and on some of the Discord channels I'm a part of.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the backfield though. Let's talk about post Geis. We have Adrian Peterson. We have Peyton Barber. We have Bryce Love. We have Antonio Gibson, the rookie out of Memphis. And we also have J.D. McKissick, who I've been hearing some buzz around. So 5 running backs on this backfield. One of them likely won't make the team. What are your thoughts on this backfield going into 2020?
That I don't want any of it, but if you're going to target somebody, I mean, look, Antonio Gibson ADP is rising, but he is still...
He's a 7th round. He's 7-11 right now in ADP.
Are we looking at the same thing? Are you looking at half PPR?
I look at full because it gets updated. It's a little more more up to date. I feel like half point is not as correct.
Okay, cool.
So half point has them at 7-11. I just feel like full point you see the massive shifts a lot quicker. I think people just do more.
Probably do more full point, but also when you project it out, I guess. And are you on FF Calc or what are you using?
I'm on FF Calc. Yeah, I got Gibson at 7-11.
I do too. Okay, he was like around 13 and a half point. So
yeah,
I thought you had said 7-11. That's a confusion on air production meeting. Anyway, when you look at that backfield, Bryce Love, Chris Thompson, basically free.
Not Chris Thompson.
Darwin Thompson.
Not Darwin Thompson. There's no Thompson there.
I'm just saying, if you do a control F on that ADP for Washington, it still shows Chris Thompson is in Washington. So something's off there.
That's funny.
Yeah. So looking at the real people that are there, Peyton Barber's there. Bryce Love is there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Peyton Barber's there. Antonio Gibson, Adrian Peterson, Bryce Love, J.D. McKissick is what you're looking at. And Adrian Peterson, I think, is going to get first shot at this backfield. Everybody's jumping on Antonio Gibson as the new hotness. What people forget, 33 carries in college. He's talented. He is. You don't go college to the NFL without in-game snaps and only 33 carries and produce and be decent at it. There's too much of a curve there, I think, for year one. Will they find ways to use him? Will they find ways to split him out? Sure. But 7th round pick is severely overvaluing him. So if I'm gun to my head taking one of these backs, it's going to be Adrian Peterson in round 10. He's going to get first crack at it. He's going to get first crack at between the tackles work. And then you're going to see some Bryce Love sprinkled in. You might see some annoyance of Peyton Barber. J.D. McKissick, I'm not worried about. And you will see some Antonio Gibson in the passing game too. But I think Adrian Peterson probably has the most insulated value here, especially as a 10th round pick.
I would think that McKissick as the inside potentially has the lock for the third down back role. Bryce Love, not very productive out of college as a pass catcher. Obviously, AP and Peyton Barber are not known pass catchers. Gibson could get that role, but he's so raw.
Right.
There's no need for me to draft Gibson this year. First off, if you draft him, you're going to probably end up cutting him because you won't have a role the first half of the season. He may not see any significant snaps, let alone opportunity with those snaps.
You're taking him over Alex Madison, Kerryon Johnson, Zach Moss, Keyshawn Vaughn.
It's stupid.
Tariq Cohen, Philip Lindsay. I mean, there are guys there that have more insulated value than a dart throw.
I mean, from all over the place. It's eventually it'll course correct. Eventually, it may calm down a little bit, especially when we start to figure out who's being in what role. But at the end of the day, you're not drafting a Washington running. There's no need to draft AP because they'll eventually be replaced. I think one of Peyton Barber, Bryce Love, or McKissick's going to get cut.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be Barber or Love. I think McKissick's going to get the third down back role. He's had that job with multiple teams. He's also a converted receiver out of college. Doesn't matter though. It's a fucking Washington running back.
Right. Adrian Peterson's my dart throw, and that's about it. I like Bryce Love. I'm holding Bryce Love in Dynasty. He's basically free. Go get him. But because what do you got to lose?
Exactly.
He was really good one year in college. He was really not good the next year, and then the draft happened, and he's been hurt ever since. So, you get it.
Anyway, let's move on.
Yep, Lamar Miller, 1-year deal with the Patriots. I'm assuming we're going to talk about the Patriots later in the hype section with Damian Harris.
We'll just add it in here.
Okay.
We just won't talk.
We just won't talk about that. Okay, more production meetings. So, you add Lamar Miller to this backfield. It is ugly. Sony Michel's on the pup. Foot, I believe. So, yes. Sony Michel's on the pup. Yeah, Damian Harris here. They just brought in Lamar Miller, also on the pup, after he was hurt last year. James White's still there. Rex Burkhead's still there. This is another backfield that is kind of ripe for a 0 RB dart throw, if you're into that sort of thing. James White right now at the 6'10" has the most insulated value, you would think.
He's jumped.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't hate James White just because of Cam used CMC. I mean, we know that they'll game plan to utilize James White. So I think James White's about what James White normally. Damian Harris at 11.09 is nice. Lamar Miller at 14.02 is free. For me, if I miss out on James White and I'm looking for running back help in the late rounds, I'm really okay with Harris or Miller. I think it's going to be kind of a week-to-week hot hand approach, but it sounds like Damian Harris is getting most of the first team work right now. So inside track to him, but I'd expect that ADP to come up too if more of that comes out of camp.
So I heard this on another show. Shout out. I don't think he really needs shout outs, but Matt Kelly's show, he did one recently that talked about the Lamar Miller news. The fact that Damian Harris is getting first team reps with Sony Michel hurts. I think Lamar Miller is going to get the Jeremy Hill treatment from last year. He's going to get cut. He's in there for camp body. He's in there for Sony Michel insurance.
Well, Miller's on the pup too.
So either way, I don't care about Michel. I don't care about Miller. I care about Harris until his ADP is too high. James White's a bit high. I still like James White. I've been able to draft him in a lot of leagues. A lot after the 6-10 ADP. I'm just generally looking at receivers at this point.
Okay.
Just because I don't think this defense is going to be great with the amount of people opting out. I think this team's going to be throwing a lot more than we expect.
And that's James White's role.
That's James White. That's the only running back I want from this team.
Yeah.
In all certainty.
And you said his ADP is too high, so let's do this. Ronald Jones or James White?
Let's add in. It'd be James White. There's if I'm almost trading Buccaneers running back field as the Patriots.
Okay.
So at least the Buccaneers have upside.
Cam Akers or James White?
I would take James White over Cam Akers.
J.K. Dobbins.
I do. I take Dobbins because of the upside, but I think White is gonna. That's tough. That's close. I take Dobbins.
He's one position behind him. Marlon Mack.
James White.
Okay. That's two positions ahead, two positions behind him. Jordan Howard.
James White. If I'm taking a Dolphins running back, I'm taking Breida.
You would actually have James White then and kind of in the back of the fifth, it sounds like, behind Swift.
I mean, you could have him at that point. Yeah, if someone drafted him there, I wouldn't hate him for it. I'm just not looking for if my drafts fall in the way that I think is going to fall.
You're looking for wide receivers. You're looking for wide receivers in that area.
I'm looking for wide receivers there.
Yeah, and for wide receivers in that area, it's Stephon Diggs, Marquise Brown, Devontae Parker, Julian Edelman, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jarvis Landry, Tyler Boyd. There's a lot of upside receivers in that range.
I think there's only I think every name there I would take over. I would take over James White.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, Cortland Sutton, A.J. Green. Yeah, there's a lot of receivers in that range.
Because even with White, we like White. White's not really a true runner, especially between the tackles.
Not at all.
He had that one magical season, but it all played out perfectly for him.
Yeah.
He's
great.
The likeliness of happening again is not probably likely.
Yep. Great in PPR. Half PPR, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, if you're picking a running back in the middle rounds because you strategize differently than we do, go for it. But
yeah,
personally, early round running back's the way to go this year. Mid round receiver,
have to.
Yeah,
have to.
It's the only way. I mean, there's dart throws at running back you can take, but you're going to be taking them beyond that where there's a bunch of upside guys.
Exactly.
All right. Training camp hype. Let's go ahead and run through this and break some of this down. What have you seen?
All right, so I have Roto World popped up. We're not going to talk about obviously everything, otherwise we'd be here for 20 hours. So we'll talk about anything that stands out. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson are splitting first team reps.
That was kind of sort of about expected for me because I didn't expect this team to, and Justin Jackson's not been talked about enough this offseason.
He has not been.
And it's good because that means I'm going to get Justin Jackson cheap. So, longtime Justin Jackson lover. First and foremost, Justin Jackson has produced when Melvin Gordon has been hurt. When he's been playing the Austin Eckler role to Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson has produced, I think, the one time when he was a starting running back. He is not produced. And I didn't expect this offense to change to the point where, they're going to completely reinvent how they handle their running backs given that fact. So what you've really got is you got Austin Eckler who's, stock up and slides into the Melvin Gordon role. You've got Justin Jackson, though, that's going to slide into his role, which, as we know, is also a very productive 10 to 15 touches a game, especially if they're leading type of role. I also think that Justin Jackson in space is a bit shiftier than what Eckler is with not quite the explosiveness. But, I do think that they can find different ways to utilize him and get him involved. So, I buy it. I think that Justin Jackson is probably close to free right now. So, I think that's something to take notice of when you're in your late round draft picks. Take Justin Jackson because he very well could have Austin Eckler light type of upside this year.
My one concern with Jackson is that he's very similar to Austin Eckler, size, role. Which if they want to reduce Eckler's work or they want to try to make him just not, treat him like Alvin Kamara and not try to overwork him. I don't know if Jackson is that, first and second down guy. Maybe we don't really know what the Chargers are going to do with the running back situation. Josh Kelly, at least the size to be a first and second down grinder. I like Josh Kelly. But I just don't think it's going to be this year. I'm still drafting Eckler with confidence. We've seen him do it. I'd be a bit excited to see what Justin Jackson can do with more of his work. He's been productive, like you said. When he's been called upon, I don't understand why they went away from him as hard off as they did once Melvin Gordon came back. Gordon has never been a great, from an efficiency standpoint, a great running back. He's just, I guess, good enough. But I'm excited. I'll be right there with you. I'll be taking Jackson as my, a guy that I can get for free, a guy that I'm looking at after week 1 if he's getting more work.
The talent's there. I thought he should have been drafted before the 7th round, and like I said, he's produced. So, I mean, he's kind of earned himself a larger role there, and we've seen backs in limited duty be fantasy usable. So,
all right. Bengals coach Zach Taylor said he's been impressed with Auden Tate. The only reason I'm bringing this up is that you have T. Higgins is battling a hamstring injury. We know John Ross's past with injuries is in it.
Well, and he's not with the team right now. He's not with the team right now anyway. He left because infant son contracted and wife contracted COVID. So he is not with the team at the moment and may, who knows when he's going to be back.
That's fair.
AJ Green tweaked a hamstring.
Yeah, so there is Tate's been semi-impressive. I know that you are not a fan of Auden Tate. But again, a guy that's for free, a guy that, a lot of us are excited about this Bengals offense and what it could be for 2020. And we've seen, at least when called upon, Tate can at least be a target hog. That was generally in reserve for AJ Green. But what are your thoughts on Auden Tate as number 3?
I mean, no touchdowns, weirdly enough, for a monster. Well, one touchdown, but none in the productive weeks for as much of a monster as he is. But he had some productive weeks without AJ Green in the lineup. And if there's a situation where he's on the field, then yes, Auden Tate is usable. It doesn't feel good to say. I don't love it. My hate on Auden Tate is that because of his size and size alone during draft season, he was being hyped up is he should be, up in that top 2 tiers of receivers, and that was never going to be the case with the athletic profile. He's not more than complimentary, but, if opportunity presents itself, that is king over everything. So, I mean, yeah, sure, you can take a late round throw at that. Tyler Boyd, Tyler Boyd is still going to be there, and we saw him produce with that as well. With I don't know, Nick Sparks playing quarterback or something. I don't remember what it was. So, yeah, that's really all I got. It's not an enthusiastic response, but you go with what you've seen, which is you've seen moderate production out of Auden Tate when he's been given the chance, and you monitor the fact that Green's injured, Higgins is injured, and John Ross is away from the team. It's back to Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate, and it's exactly what you had last year. So you go off of what you know with general improvements, and that trends upwards. Now, we'll see what happens with Green and Higgins, how they progress, what comes out of camp about Higgins as a rookie without live reps or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to watch at minimum.
I still think they should have moved the tight end. Daryl Williams is getting first team reps with Clyde Edwards-Helaire having a day off. Many expected this to be DeAndre Washington, given his past experience with Mahomes back in college. We've talked a lot about this backfield. We don't need to talk about CEH, so let's talk about. I think that there is a backup you want to own here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to get all the work. I don't think he's going to get as much work as people think he is. So what are you making of Daryl Williams as the, backup, potential first and second down grinder on this Chiefs offense?
I mean, it's simple. He's been in the offense. People make too much out of this guy played with this guy in college. Well, great. Different scheme, different team, different offense entirely. So just because a quarterback and a player have chemistry doesn't mean that they have chemistry in that system, and doesn't mean that that player is in tune with that system the way that they need to be. Darrell Williams is the incumbent. He's in tune with the Andy Reid system. And we've seen him produce in flashes too. So I think whoever comes out of camp as a 2 is definitely worth a mid to late round pick that you are rostering because of what you just said. And I could firmly believe it is Darrell Williams and DeAndre Washington, to be completely honest. I mean, make what you will of a guy playing with a guy in college, but incumbents that know the system are always going to trump, well, he played with my quarterback.
Exactly.
So,
I think it's going to be an interesting watch, especially if Fuller has a slower start or if one of these other backups just looks too good. Devin Asiasi, Patriots tight end, is doing it all in Patriots camp. Obviously, there's got to be a tight end that's got to do some work there with Matt LaCouse opting out of the season. And just we've seen what Cam Newton has done with tight ends in the past. I'm not saying that Devin Asiasi is Greg Olsen by any means. Is there anything here? I know he's a rookie. We don't trust rookies in 2020, especially tight ends. What are your thoughts? We haven't talked a lot about it. Somebody's froze.
You froze.
I froze.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of thoughts on the Patriots tight end situation. It's a matter of the fact where I don't want to draft any of them. If somebody produces, great, go run for them on waivers. There's enough talented guys that are coming into a larger role that have flashed a little bit that are on new teams, et cetera, that I am much more interested in than a rookie in the year of COVID that didn't have a lot of pedigree or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I figured I'd throw it out there. Let's talk about a couple Colts receivers are getting a lot of hype. Michael Pittman is building quick rapport with Phillip Rivers, and Paris Campbell again is being amazing. He was amazing last year in training camp and preseason before he battled his own injuries. He's getting that praise again, second year in a row. I believe we both like Campbell, especially after the landing spot was a bit juicy. But let's talk about Pittman and Campbell here. What are your thoughts on these two Colts? On the Colts, what looks to be their number 2 and number 3 receiver entering 2020?
Michael Pittman was always interesting to me because of the talent, and really, I do think he could very well produce in year one. Paris Campbell, also a talented guy. It's a situation where I think you could make a case for either guy. Remember, Campbell hurt for a lot of last year. So I think you can make a case for either guy. You've got a new quarterback coming in, and, cream rises. So one of those two is going to emerge. I do think Michael Pittman has more of a skill set to what Rivers is used to working with than what Paris Campbell does. Back to offenses, though, Paris Campbell's the incumbent. So we'll see. We're going to see how that one plays out. But, for me, it's really an ADP side of whichever one I want more. And
they're both pretty much going to be free. I think Campbell is going to be drafted higher.
Pittman's the 13-11 right now.
I think Campbell's in the 11th.
I don't even see him.
He might not, but he's not on there. But either way,
Campbell's free, so
even better. So it's stated a while ago. I don't know how much this has changed since, but Pittman's supposed to play outside with Hilton, and Campbell is supposed to get the slot work. That doesn't really mean that he's only going to play from the outside or he's only going to play from the slot. But Campbell from the slot gives me half a chub. He's fast. He can, I'm not going to say, definitely not saying that he's going to be the Keenan Allen of this. That's mostly going to be T.Y. But with Rivers' ability to work underneath, we saw that with the Chargers forever on. That gives me a half chub. As for Pittman, if he's going to play more of the Mike Williams role, and I guess Tyrell Williams, because they both essentially played the same role, then it's more blow up games and not a lot of targets.
Yeah. So the thing that concerns me about Paris Campbell, while it's a money nightmare, Phillip Rivers 27th in the league in deep ball completion percentage.
Yeah,
so
it just
not
depends.
great.
It just depends what his ADOT. If Campbell is going to be the guy that they want to work underneath, then I don't care what Rivers' deep ball completion is. That would cause him more concern for Pittman, who's going to play that outside role.
Well, if Campbell's going to work underneath, though, right? I mean, the speed's the matchup nightmare in the slot, so you don't typically send a slot guy deep. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. The fact is, both of them are almost free. Draft both of them. See who comes out. Worst case scenario, they're going to be in a turn roster spot. So, but Campbell's more athletic. Pittman's a little more, at least as a college player coming in, a little more refined. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. They both shouldn't really eat into each other's work. They're both different enough receivers. And will likely be used the same.
And T.Y. Hilton's health really plays into that too.
Exactly. So let's move on. Dante Pettis is in the news. He's rising to the challenge so far in 49ers camp. You are the resident Dante Pettis truther. What are your thoughts on this?
Jalen Hurd tore an ACL. So, Jalen Hurd tore an ACL. Deebo Samuel's going to be out for a bit. They're going to be forced to use Dante Pettis, and we've seen Dante Pettis produce.
Is he the Tyler Boyd? Is he?
He very well could be.
He could be, right?
He very well could be. So I'm saying keep an eye on the health of that receiver core, because if Dante Pettis is on the field, he has as much of a chance to produce as anything. Brandon Ayuk's gotten some praise. Gotten some praise and gotten some love, but Brandon Ayuk was not that refined to me coming out of college and seemed to be a very, very surprise pick at that level. And to me, it doesn't strike me as somebody that's going to step on the field and produce immediately. Ayuk is someone that I'm willing to straight up call bullshit on. They just might be forced to use him because their receivers are hurt and they've traded them. So, yeah, Dante Pettis, though, much of a chance as anybody to come out there and produce right now. So
I'm not going to say to draft him, but
keep an eye on that.
On your watch list.
He's a waiver watch for sure.
Yep. It's going to be all Kittle. I mean, Kittle may be leading the fucking league in receptions and targets.
Yeah.
Early part of the season. DeAndre Swift. He's been impressing people. He's been impressing the coaching staff with his work in the passing game. You and I are both big fans of Swift here. There's been a photo floating around of Kerryon Johnson still wearing his knee brace. He says he wears it because it makes him feel more comfortable. Not a great sign when you're this close to the season, and just with Kerryon's long history with durability concerns and his own injury. So just let's pump the Swift love up. Let's just pump it up. How much do you love DeAndre Swift in 2020?
About as much as I love this beer. So
let's go. Beer review.
Here we go. About as much as I love this beer. This beer is very, very smooth. It's fruity. I got it because of the way the notes were described on the front of it, with some of that El Dorado hop popping out and the peaches and the stone fruit, and drink super is easy. Very little bitterness to it for an IPA. Super refreshing. DeAndre Swift, you'll love him because of his traits and what's advertised. Smooth runner, smooth pass catcher, smooth in all facets of the game. And I'm not surprised that the coaches are impressed with him to the same level that I am impressed with this beer, because, it's what you expected. It's what I expect when I see a description of stone fruits in an IPA, to be very drinkable, a little bit on the sweet side, very refreshing, and not super bitter. And DeAndre Swift, very palatable, very smooth, very refreshing. And I'm super happy to see him in this offense as somebody with the same skill set as Kerryon Johnson that can potentially stay healthy. The coaching staff's impressed with him now. I've been impressed with him since I originally watched his film.
I'm so glad you just throw those in there so smoothly. Again, I'm drinking Indeed's Hop Dab IPA, 7.2%, West Coast style, a little more on the fruit forward. Says it got, I think, only 42 IBU. So maybe not a true traditional West Coast by any means, but says the citrus, piney, herb. Again, those are the very traditional West Coast styles of beer. I love those styles of beer. I love that style of beer as much as I love the news that Preston Williams has practiced with no restrictions on Monday. You and I are both big fans of Preston Williams in this offense. We weren't super high on him coming into last year, but again, once you show out and once you've been able to keep up with a guy like Devontae Parker, who's getting all the rage,
outperformed Devontae Parker.
Outperformed him,
did not
targeted him.
Take off until Preston Williams got hurt.
He's a lot of love for Preston Williams. They are hurting for a number 2 there with both Alan Hearns and Albert Wilson.
Or a 1.
Opting out.
Yeah.
Or a 1. I still think Parker's the 1.
They're going to be playing from behind. Love to go around. They're going to be playing from behind. Love to go around. And it's easy to sit here and say, after the way last year ended, I think Parker the 1. The truth is, Parker wasn't the 1 until Preston Williams got hurt.
1A, 1B. I think Preston Williams, he did a lot. He did a few of that work with Josh Rosen. I think it's more or less is that it's not about who's the 1 or the 2. I think it's more 1A, 1B. I would say that Parker is the 1 coming into this year. Preston still has to make sure that he's 100% with no true setbacks with his ACL tear. But this is fantastic news. No restrictions.
The Cooper Cup logic.
This Miami team is going to be bad. You mentioned having to play from behind. We know what Fitzpatrick is.
You were right, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
You forget his name for a second.
I forget. I guess so. The great news. What's not great news is that N'Keal Harry is struggling to run away from the pass secondary. Separation issues was always a problem with N'Keal. That was always the biggest concern that people had. And it's raised a concern that maybe when we evaluate college players and college tape, that maybe contested catches needs to be looked at a little bit differently and translated a little bit differently, given that I forgot where I heard it from. I know it was on a Matt Kelly show, but the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, the leader in contested catch rate coming out of college has struggled to find their own room, to find their own way, in the NFL. Not saying that Harry's going to be a bust, not saying that he's going to be bad.
Sure.
But a bit concerning, given the amount of hype we've heard from everywhere else, that all of a sudden now we're hearing that he's having some problems with the separation.
So, I mean, first off, New England secondary is good. That's one thing to keep in mind, especially you figure he's probably up against Gilmore. So, I mean,
pretty fucking good.
A lot of people struggle with that. That being said, yes, I also am not a big fan of contested catch people in college.
Yeah.
I like route runners. I like people that can separate, and that's true at the NFL also. Fact is, he's going to have to show that he can beat NFL DBs with athleticism and that he can refine his route running a little bit more. Now, Cam Newton's got an arm. They'll find a way to use him. He figures to be on the field, maybe. I don't know. You've got about 4 deep there. So it'll be interesting to see. But with Edelman and Sanu there, Jacoby Myers, who flashed a bit last year, look, the fact is he's not guaranteed to be in the lineup or guaranteed to be in the starting lineup, especially if they think he's struggling. Belichick's not going to throw him out there just to throw him out there. So, N'Keal Harry, see some dynasty trades with Harry. People still valuing him as a high-end asset, and, I'm not so sold on that. Hey, Bill Murray is playing defensive tackle for the Patriots, by the way.
Good for Bill Murray.
Look at Bill Belichick finding sleepers all over the place.
I mean, Bill Murray might actually be sleeping. So, all right, let's.
He's always sleeping.
Let's, for time's sake, let's. I think we'll a production meeting. I think we'll add in some of these as the offseason rolls around before season starts.
Oh, there's going to continue to be hype. I think we have to.
I think we'll continue with this, and we'll kind of we'll give you the around the sports update on these ridiculous hype news. So let's pivot off of football. Something that I've enjoyed doing this year is letting you guys get to know little bit about us. Both Chris and I are huge musician fans. Love music. Last time we were on, we talked about movies. Let's talk about musicians, bands that we loved growing up. Who was your favorite band? Who was your favorite bands that you loved growing up?
All right. So first and foremost, it's important to know that we grew up in the age of butthole rock.
He's not Ron.
I'm not wrong. That's just
not Ron.
It's what the '90s, late '90s, early 2000s was butthole rock. So I'm gonna start with Cold is probably my all-time favorite band. They're out of Jacksonville, Florida. They do a lot of heavier lyrical stuff. Some of their older stuff was more almost like melodic through the guitar and singing through the guitar and everything. No, they're not.
They're a lot better than
a lot better than that. But that got me through some. We won't go into my childhood and make this a depressing show, but that got me through some rough stuff, and I can't deny that or turn my back on that. So that is A1. Is Cold. Cold is A1 for me for sure. Number 2. We'll go less butthole rock, Blink-182.
Yes.
We're talking Take Off Your Pants and Jacket era, Dude Ranch.
Enema of the State.
Blink-182 was one of the first pop punk type bands I got into. Green Day was big for me before they went super poly rock. They're political, or maybe it was before I realized that they were being political, one or the other. But yeah, Green Day was big for me. Dookie, American Idiot, just great music there. Stained, another big one, going back towards kind of that rock thing for me. So those are a couple of big ones growing up. I could sit here forever and go off about bands that have been influential. If we're looking back beyond that time frame, Metallica might have been one of the first bands that got me into more of metal rock and roll. AC/DC and Pantera.
I love both those bands. You mentioned Metallica. Metallica is who I grew up on. To my dad, so my parents were split. So my dad always. So when I would go visit my dad, it'd be me always listening to like 3 albums. We talked about albums that defined my childhood. The Black Album.
Yep.
On repeat. I knew almost every song. I still listen to that album today. But Metallica was a huge defining moment for me. At least through my early years. You throw in Van Halen's Greatest Hits Part 1. I didn't grow up during the first lead singer's name. I can't remember. Fuck. It's gonna bug me. I think it's Dave something. I don't know. But anyways, that album and then Sammy Hagar. I just absolutely love Van Halen. And then Countdown to Extinction from Megadeth. that for some reason that I just loved it. That and like AC/DC's Back in Black.
David Lee Roth was
David Lee Roth. So that was right. That was a D name. Love AC/DC's Back in Black. As I got a little bit older, Godsmack before they became butthole rock.
Yeah,
like self-titled album Godsmack Awake, which
Voodoo. Godsmack was good. Something I never got into. On the flip side of the coin, other bands people like that I never really got into. System of a Down was one of them that I think it's just because I didn't like Serge's voice. But
it was different. It was.
I mean, they're good in their own right, but it was just not really up my alley. Slipknot definitely deserves mention. The Iowa album for me was big. You're the Spider from Cold, 14 Shades of Grey from Stained, if we're looking back at some of those. Cowboys from Hell from Pantera. So
Break the Cycle from Stained.
Break the Cycle, also really, really good.
Epiphany is probably still one of my all-time favorite songs.
That was the first song I learned to play on guitar, was Epiphany.
Mine was Adam's song from Blink-182.
That was the second.
So as you guys can probably tell, we have heavy influence on the rock from all genres of rock, all subgenres. I also was huge into hip hop and rap. Mine would be local hip hop artist atmosphere.
Yeah.
And by local, I mean by Minneapolis local. Massive. I wasn't as big in the hip hop and rap as I was with rock. My dad was a metalhead, so and I didn't find my love of country until a lot later.
So I'm the opposite, actually. Country was what I was really brought up on initially. Like you were talking kindergarten, first grade. It was country. So I mean, Alan Jackson, Colin Ray, Keith Urban has been a country artist that I kind of stick to. So I mean, there's country artists out there for me as well. We span a lot of genres. I think mostly we're in post-hardcore and pop punk now. But
I mean, I have grown obsessed, so I've been on this kick with pop punk like crazy. Like,
yeah, I have too. It's just lasted for 12 years.
Yeah, true. I mean, I loved it. Like, I didn't love it the same way that you and Nick loved it. I didn't find my true love of pop punk until a little bit later, but wanted to give some shout outs to ourselves just with our music taste. I wanted you guys to kind of understand that why our intro is a little bit of a rock feel to it. So
that's just what we like. I like angry music. I don't know what to say.
Do. I love angry, sad. That makes me
angry, sad.
Again, the words of Bowling for Soup, music that hates her dad.
Yeah. I mentioned Cold, and I think they have a song called Bleed, which is basically just about feeling through music, and that's really my attachment to music and what it's meant to me was being able to, when I don't have the words or when even words aren't enough, to be able to feel through it, use it as a way to release, as a way to relate, as a way to get through. You're happy, it changes. You're sad, it changes. You're depressed, it changes. You're angry, it changes. But there's always something there that can speak to you, talk for you, express for you. And that's kind of been my relationship with music throughout my, at least the last 17, 18, 20 years.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it any better. Music has been an integral part on who I've grown up to be and what helped me get through a lot of the darker times. Let's get away from the darker times, so let's move on to the, I guess, main segment.
Some late round statements.
Last call for alcohol, as I call it. Because we got to keep with the beer theme. Who likes fucking boring titles?
Or beer?
Oh God! Last call for Hopper to get a new beer. So we're doing our starts and sit, or not starts and sit. We're doing sleepers a little bit differently this year. Normally, you'll hear on 1,000 shows them talk about their favorite guys in the late rounds. They always give off a few of them, which is fine. I want to do something a little bit differently. We're going to build a small roster using late round, which is ADPs of round 10 or later to build a roster. This is going to be built on the fly because
I'm just going to go position by position too. I'm not going to do this draft style.
We're not doing draft style. It's not going to be draft style. We're just going to build a team. It just worked out that way.
Are we going to agree on this, or are we building our own teams?
We're going to build our own teams. We can definitely use the same players. Just for the sake of not talking about 30 guys or whatever,
sure.
It'd be 15 guys. Well, if it's the same player, then so fucking be it. We'll start with quarterbacks. There's a lot of options here, especially in single QB leagues.
Yep.
So we'll do single QB, and then we can give a quick shout out to 2 QB if there's anybody there. So who are your favorite, or who would be your favorite post round 10?
Looking at round 10, there's a couple guys that really jump off the page to me. Matt Stafford is first and foremost at the 1004, probably at the top of that list, given the path that he was on last season before he got hurt. I mean, he was on pace to have a top 3 quarterback type of year. He's always undervalued. He's once again 10th rounder later. Ben Roethlisberger's also there. He's coming back with still a cast of weapons on a team that figures to throw at least a bit. Jared Goff is down there in round 13 with all sorts of weapons and what figures to be a bad defense. And then Kirk Cousins, who is perennially kind of underrated, is down there in round 14. But if I'm doing it here with a 10th rounder later quarterback, I'm taking Matt Stafford, given the trajectory he was on with the offense that he is in.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's Matt Stafford. Again, there's so many good options. Baker Mayfield, I expect to be a lot more efficient in an offense that won't rely on him so much, and he's just better mentally. He did come out and say that he battled with mental issues, with just all issues, as being the guy instead of the guy you hate on, the guy, or instead of a guy that you want to root for. He was shit on because of how much the Browns were being hyped. As for Superflex and 2 QB leagues, Teddy Bridgewater going in the 10th round. I absolutely love a quarterback that's efficient, that's accurate, and has the skill set, or not the skill set, has the positional players to help him succeed in DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel. And of course, CMC out of the backfield. Not a lot of options there this late, but as your QB3, Bridgewater could be a very nice bye week fill-in.
Yep. Some other guys that are of notice down here in Superflex would be Drew Lock, and then not mentioned at all Gardner Minshew.
Yes,
not on this
obviously
list.
Minshew.
There figures to be a ton of value. A ton of volume, given the fact that the Jaguars' defense is essentially in shambles. Garbage time or not, I think Gardner Minshew has the running floor and everything to where he's solidly going to be placed in the top. In the top 15 or so of quarterbacks. So
yeah,
Gardner Minshew, also super accurate, doesn't generally protects the ball.
Yeah, he I expect an increase. This Jaguars offense has improved in needs of areas of improvement. Love Minshew. Move on to running backs. Pick out a couple, and then throw out a name that if you can think of one off the top of your head that's not on the ADP list.
Yep. So looking at beyond round 10, Adrian Peterson, who we talked about earlier in the show, is one that jumps out to me. Damian Harris jumps out. AJ Dillon, and
Yeah. So
not a whole lot of late round running backs sitting there.
So this should be a red light, or I guess
this
a light
red
that
flag.
pops in your head.
Yep.
To say why you shouldn't wait on running backs, why it's not a good idea to run the 0 RB strategy, and in hopes of guys like Chase Edmonds, who I like, as a potential chance 10th round pick. Duke Johnson, again, we know David Johnson's ability to stay healthy,
right?
And just Duke's always been valuable. Boston Scott, the fact that Philly hasn't added anybody to that backfield, Scott should see a significant run. And if anything were to happen to Miles Sanders, that value increases. The aforementioned Justin Jackson, again.
Yep. Aforementioned Damian Harris sitting right
Damian
there.
Harris.
Peterson.
Jared McKinnon, the only real pass catching back in that 49ers offense, which is not going to be as efficient, and the defense is not going to be as elite as last year. McKinnon has a good path to true opportunity as that pass catcher, the best pass catcher in that offense.
Right. So
I'll throw one more name out there, and that's Dare Ogunbowale from the Bucks. They're the same vein. It's the same vein as McKinnon and the same vein as James White. His role should be secure as the best pass catching back there, and in an offense that's going to be elite, and an offense that's going to that should produce a ton, that should score a ton. Why not have the running back that's been working out with Tom Brady all offseason? Why not have the running back that's been working out with Tom Brady all offseason that you can get for free?
Yeah. Kind of running through here, trying to land on a name for myself.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's not much.
There's really not a whole heck of a lot, honestly. There's just not a whole lot late round that you can really dive into. So I'll give out a name that's not listed, though. I finally landed on one. Darrington Evans is a name I want to throw out there. Rookie running back out of Tennessee. Deion Lewis experiment did not work. We know that there's going to have to be some form of Derrick Henry complement there. In at least the passing game, but also to spell him from workload. And really, a cuff. So Darrington Evans is an undrafted name I want to throw out there. You can get for basically free. That could pop up with some insulated value.
I guess he's had some fumbling issues during training camp.
Yeah, so does Chris Carson, and he's good every year.
One player that I guess has reinvented his body, and it's getting some love out of Pittsburgh is Benny Snell.
So he's like a Terminator now?
I don't know. I just things I've been hearing in a backfield that I'm not as much in love with as I used to be. So maybe Benny Snell. I don't know. We didn't like him last year, but
Oh, Darrell Williams also.
Darrell Williams. Yeah.
The aforementioned.
Darrell Williams.
He's undrafted too.
All right, let's move to receivers here. A lot of names. I mean, a plethora of names to pick from.
Again,
this is the other reason why.
You
should be waiting on receivers this year.
All right. Just gonna hit off some names as we go, and then I'll pick through them. Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder's actually definitely a target here. He's got to be at the 10:01 because, I mean, we like Denzel Mims and everything, but what does New York have? Robbie Anderson's gone. Anuna was gone. It is Jamison Crowder's world at the moment.
Should be.
Yep. Jerry Jeudy in Denver, Christian Kirk, Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor, by the way, another person that I think you should really throw something at. He's playing the Alshon Jeffrey role. Essentially, we know Jeffrey's not going to be healthy to start the season at this point. So, why not? Justin Jefferson, Golden Shepherd is sitting down here in this range, which why not throw out one of them? Preston Williams, who we talked about beforehand. John Brown, who was fantastic in Buffalo last year, going in the 13th round. Michael Pittman. Hunter Renfrow, who's the type of guy I've talked about wanting to have around on your bench. But quite honestly, if I'm taking a dart throw here at two wide receivers, it's going to be Jamison Crowder, and screw it, we'll go with, man, it's a toss-up between Golden Shepherd and Jalen Reagor for me. Honestly, because one of the Golden Shepherd duo is gonna be it there.
Yeah.
Question is which one. So, I mean, yeah,
either of those. You should probably go to a more sure thing.
Flip a coin. Yeah, Reagor is gonna. Well, Rager's not a sure thing though in his own right. Screw it. Give me Preston Williams.
Love the pivot. If I had Rager for my two,
yeah.
For my two, I'm going to go with Kurt and Reagor. I'm going to go with upside.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm drafted, but at least my 2 and 3, at least my 2, probably my 3 at this point. So I'm going dart throw upside, who has a real chance at producing week 1. Reagor getting all the love, as Hopper mentioned, as being the Alshon Jeffrey role. He was talked about early on as being just a Deshaun Jackson kind of backup, learning Deshaun Jackson's role. With the news of Jeffrey struggling, and Reagor just coming on even more so than they thought, they decided to give him the X role too. Have him start learning that. So Reagor, who's gotten a lot of buzz out of Philly, and then Kurt, just because that offense is going to be elite, and Hopkins has been battling the hamstring injury the last couple of weeks, I guess, or he's missed the last couple of practices due to the hamstring injury. So I'll give one receiver that's not on this list, and I wrote down last week because I just have to. Traquan Smith. He could also be the Tyler Boyd. I understand they bring in Emmanuel Sanders, who's going to be in his mid-30s. He's been effective. I get it. He's been effective. But again, we talked about this all offseason. We talked about this just in general. The changing teams as a receiver, these guys can struggle. He hasn't had the offseason to build that rapport with Drew Brees. He's been battling back from his own injuries. I still like Sanders, but I think the battling between Sanders and Traquan Smith is going to happen. And you're still drafting a receiver tethered to Drew Brees in this high-powered offense, who I think is going to throw the ball a lot this year. He's free. You can just watch list him. If he blows up, spend some fab on him, and then you may have had your early season breakout.
Sure. I'll give some love to another. Well, I don't want to make it a rookie, so I'm not going to do that. I was going to give some love to Denzel Mims there, but you know what? I'm going to pivot. He is listed, but he's essentially free. Rashad Perriman there in New York. We saw end of last year with both Godwin and Mike Evans hurt. Rashad Perriman really actually kind of jump in and produce a bit. And New York's defense figures to be bad. There figures to be volume there. Robbie Anderson's not there. It's Jamison Crowder and question mark. So, Rashad Perriman's a guy late that you could look at also throwing on there and being a real kind of late career breakout. You mentioned the Tyler Boyd. That is another option.
Could be Devonta Parker. It could be the year 5 breakout.
Yeah, Devontae Parker, Tyler Boyd. I mean, there's precedent for that sort of thing. So, that's the route that I'm going to go with that.
I've no issue with that. As you mentioned, how bad the Jets defense is going to be. Jamal Adams straight is